Okay, so introduction to programming. We are in section 2, introduction to HTML. So in this tutorial, we are going to begin using HTML, and we are going to do the traditional hello world using HTML. So HTML is a pretty easy to learn markup language. The notes for this section gives a lot of the history of HTML. So I would encourage you guys to download the notes and read it, see so we get an understanding of what HTML is and why we use HTML. So what I want you to do firstly is to create a folder, and we can give this folder some name. So I would put section 2 underscore HTML. So in this folder, we are going to put all our nice hard work that we are about to do, so that we can keep track of what we are doing and we can build on it as we go through this course. So what we are going to do is we are going to build our first HTML I don't want to say a program, but for the sake of the course, we'll just call it a web page, right? So we're going to do a web page, and we are going to mark up our web page using HTML, so our web browsers can actually interpret the markup and render our page as a web page. So this is why we are using HTML. We want to create a web page. We want to create a document, and HTML is the tool to assist us in creating this document, which happens to be a web page. From our tutorial, the notes, we would have been taught how to use a few HTML tags and the order of the tags, and any document that contains these tags and in the same order and saved with a .html extension would be interpreted by a web browser as a web page. Simple as that. So let's get coding. What we want to do is save our file as hello world.html. Now for Notepad users, and other users could take note of this as well, when using these text editors, it is important that we change the file type here from text files or .txt to all files. So we will put our file extension up here as HTML, and here we want to change to all files. So this would ensure that it is saved as a HTML file and passed as a HTML file by whichever browser you are using. Right, so our first line here, doc type HTML. Again, it is required. However, if for some reason you would ignore it, browsers would still render your web pages correctly, but it is actually expected to be in your web page. Reason being, this is how a web browser, but not only a web browser, but any other processing agent would be able to identify the document as actually being a web page, a HTML5 document. There we have it, a completed HTML document, and believe it or not, every single web page on the web has fundamentally this exact same structure here. So as an exercise, you could actually go look at lots of random web pages and search out for this structure. It doesn't matter if it's a small page or it's a big page, it fundamentally would have this exact same structure. Now, just a point with respect to this, there would be occasions where you would find pages that violate this structure, and that's because web browsers are extremely lenient in how they parse, P-A-R-S-E, HTML markup. So a lot of times they would ignore errors, they would ignore omitted tags, etc. And there are actually some even rare cases where a lot of the pages would be generated dynamically. So you may actually not see the tags unless you search really hard. And again, there are instances where the author may choose to not put the tags anyway. So let's take a look at our web page that we have just created, which we are very proud of. We have just accomplished step 1 in becoming web developers, and there it is. So we have nothing on our page. So let's now add the traditional hello world so that we can complete our first tutorial in HTML. So to add text to an HTML page, you need to insert it within the body tags. Right, so we'll go over the tags soon, but I'll tell you all now, we're going to insert our text between the body tags. And there we have it. Hello world. Success. So we have done our very first web page. So we are going to do a short recap and take a look at the HTML elements and the tags used to represent them and discuss this page a little. This very first line, exclamation mark, doc type HTML. This is what you call a document type declaration, or a DTD. What is a document type declaration? This is just simply a declaration that informs a processing agent, such as a web browser, of the type of file that it is going to process. In this case, this simple declaration says that this file is a HTML5 file. Pretty simple. The first tag here, HTML, and incidentally the document type definition is the first line of the file. Okay, do not be alarmed if you come across many websites now that do not include this doc type declaration. The document type declaration is the correct way to go about doing it. Again, web browsers are pretty smart, so if it is ignored, the web page would still load. So there are instances where you would actually see web pages without this doc type declaration. So the first tag, or well, let's say tag in an HTML document would be this HTML tag, and basically it says this is the start of the HTML document. So this is where it starts, and conversely this /HTML is the closing tag that says this is where this document ends. So this document has a structure associated with it, and part of that structure is a head. So that's this head tag here, and the head tag usually contains what you would call metadata, So we'll touch a little bit on metadata in subsequent tutorials or classes, as well as we would see that within the head there are instances where we would like to do other stuff, such as we may create JavaScript functions, we may create CSS style sheets, or we may have server-side code residing as well in a document head. So there are a lot of things that go on in a document head at times, but as beginners we are just going to start with the simple stuff. So in our document head we only have one thing, a title, and our title is pretty blank right now. So let's give our website a title. There, so our website has a title. So our title is the only thing that we have right now in the head of our HTML document. So let's move on to the body. So the body of an HTML document is everything that you would see in your web browser. So the body contains the visible portion of your web browser's window. So let's take a look at our web browser. So everything we see here is within the body tags. So let's be curious and let's put this to test. Let's see what I have done here. I have actually created some text and inserted it into different locations within the HTML document. Remember what I was saying, that ideally the visible portion of our web page is what we see between the body tags. So in a strict interpretation of our web page, we really shouldn't see anything that is included outside of the body tags. So we have put here a message before head, within head, outside of the body, and actually outside of the marked up document. So let's go take a look at our web page and see what our web page looks like. And it's obvious that every single thing has been printed. So this is using Firefox. I'm going to run it on Google Chrome as well. And here we have the exact same thing on Google Chrome. So different browsers may implement it differently, but what we are seeing is that the browsers will render whatever they want to render. But good practice is whatever it is you want visible on your web page, you would include between the opening body tag and the closing body tag. So the lesson here for beginners is that marking up an HTML document for processing by a web browser puts a lot of responsibility on you as the developer or programmer. What this means is that do not expect that because you learned or you heard or you read that what is between the body tags is what is shown on the browser, that browsers are bound to follow that. So what we just learned is that these browsers are pretty independent creatures. They are smart, they do what they like, they do what they want. And as a budding web developer, you would need to know the specification for HTML, meaning what are you supposed to do. For example, going back in the code here, generally we should not put anything before the doc type declaration. But we just saw that putting it doesn't stop the web browser from showing it. And likewise, the head tag is used for certain things. The body tag, as we mentioned, is used for rendering everything we see in our web browser. And ideally, nothing we want rendered should be outside of the body tag. So let's delete this and this last line as well. So what this has just demonstrated for you all is that code itself does not force or bind a processing agent to how it interprets the document. Basically what it does, it says that, look at me, look at my code structure. If you could decipher my code structure, you would know that I am an HTML document. But it leaves the actual implementation to the agent itself, and in this case, the web browser. So why I want you guys as new students to actually know the specifications, understand what each section of an HTML document does, it's because there would come a time when your HTML document would need to be parsed, and that is P-A-R-S-E-D, or interpreted by some agent other than a web browser. It could be a computer program, for example, and if the other agent is not as forgiving as a web browser, you may run into trouble with the other agent interpreting your web page. So you could get errors being generated, or you could just have what you would call unpredictable behavior or unpredictable results. So I have cleaned it up, and this here is more in line with what is expected from a well-constructed web page. Hey, if you're interested in learning more about HTML in between videos or simply for preparation, you can go over to w3schools.com. So this is W3 Schools website, and you would like to go onto references, and this is what we are interested in right here, the HTML reference. So this resource will give you a lot of extra really nice information about HTML, how certain things work, and I recommend it for anybody who wants to understand any of the HTML tags or properties of these tags or elements. So catch you again in our next video.